Yo, what up, guys? Travic here. And today, well, today I gave my crossbow a monk. I gave my monk a crossbow. Yeah. Well, the problem with that is my monk went from this staff-wielding lunatic into this, like, it's just a man running around with a shotgun. All jokes aside, giving the monk the crossbow was one of the coolest things I've done in Path of Exile 2 in a minute. Yesterday we did a video and we talked about a Rapidshire Pathfinder we played with crossbows, and it was a lot of fun and it was really good, but it struggled in certain areas. It couldn't really do bosses too well. It struggled with map bosses. It was like overcoming that hump, and I believe we could easily have get there. So as I was starting to like work with the Pathfinder and I was streaming a little bit and I was showcasing it and trying to come, trying to get over the hump to start doing bosses, there was a gentleman in chat named Gerard, and he was like, LMAO, why don't you give your monk a crossbow? And I was like, that's insanity. I like it. And he was like, well, listen, this is what we do. We give your monk a crossbow. We give him some lightning damage. We give him the typical Hoa setup, energy shield stacking, the absolute works. And I guarantee you it will blow you out of the water. And I was like, well, what do you mean? So he sends me his POB. He's like level like 88, not fully crit capped, and he's cruising through content, and I absolutely could not believe it. Ugh. Surprise cat. Now, Gerard was telling me that he was having the time of his life and I needed to try it. I was absolutely hooked to crossbows. I love all the crossbow skills. They're all super fun. I even want to go as far as making a Titan next with a crossbow and just see what happens, because they told me that crossbows were bad and then you hear Titan are bad. I'm like, bro, let's go find out. Let's go find out together. So we're going to farm up some currency. We're going to make a Titan, but that's not neither here nor there. Anyways, the monk with a crossbow, as you can see playing before you, was doing a couple of really cool things. It has a shotgun and a plasma gun. It is using the shotgun from galvanic shots or galvanic shards to literally clear the map. You can see that right away. And then it is going to be using shock burst rounds to completely decimate any single target that we come across. The monk is utilizing the fact that we get free infinite shock from Choir of the Storms. You can see the lightning bolts constantly coming down. And you see we swap just now to a boss setup to our cast on X setup. And as soon as we get the boss shocked and as soon as things roll, you see map bosses themselves are completely decimated and obliterated. It is absolutely wild. We have Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice, the whole 9 yards, everything works with it, and we're able to cruise through maps. Now, I'm gonna skip ahead in this clip and just showcase the next breach and just how good it does in breaches. So we're gonna come on over here to a breach and we're gonna pop our breach, and you're gonna see galvanic shards make hasty work of breach. You were able to map with this character without issue. Ideally, though, you wouldn't do maps with increased ailment threshold. They are doable, but they're not as smooth. Because we're playing monk, we just don't care about enemy resistances at all, as we crit, and that's all taken care of between being a monk and Choir of the Storms, and our damage is absolutely off the charts. You see right now, breaches are no problem at all. We are able to go, even in a bad layout map, able to clear around corners. Our bullets are ricocheting off walls. Our bullets are just doing or our crossbow bolts, I should say, are just doing everything that we need them to do. Now, if you're like, hey man, can this guy boss? What's the deal? Well, in this clip as well, I do have some bosses for you. We did do the typical Xesh 4, and you're gonna see this right away. You see we're just pre-prepping our shock burst rounds, and we actually even get frozen in this. And you see, as soon as Xesh has the cast when stun set up, or the cast when shock set up, the shock on him, the crit weakness, and we're able to just start firing without being stunned and slowed, we are able to tick down his damage very well. We didn't even use Unbound Avatar, and the same thing happens going into the Arbiter. The Arbiter is no different. We are able to go right into the Arbiter fight. We get him shocked, we get the procs going off, we get him with crit weakness, and it's just completely off to the races in terms of our damage. Now, you're not going to one-shot everything like some of the other builds, but you are going to have a really good set of DPS, and as you get better gear and a better crossbow, maybe adorned, you will get to that ability to just completely one-shot. You see here too, I was able to take hits from the Arbiter, no problem at all. The character in itself is overall very, very, very tanky and can take a really nice hit. Unless you're like typing to your friend Tim while in the middle of the map and you aren't paying attention, and then mobs swarm you and you just get completely and utterly obliterated because you're too busy focusing on other things. But I do want to say Gerard did a fantastic job with the setup and giving me the idea. playing what he did was absolutely fantastic. So big shout out to him. Now, this is what's going on. We are indeed playing Crossbow Monk. Nothing has changed. We are an Invoker. We are CI. The big difference and the big takeaway for this Monk is we are going to be using Choir of the Storms. Essentially what happens is Choir of the Storms is going to give us the ability to trigger Greater Lightning Bolt, which is going to shock our enemies, which is going to allow us to not have to do a weird weapon swap to just be able to use Shock Burst rounds. Essentially, our Greater Lightning Bolt in itself has a 44% chance to crit. Our Shock Burst rounds has a like 49% chance to crit. So when we swap the Shock Burst rounds and we start firing, every other shot is a crit until we get the ball rolling. As soon as we crit the mob one time, Choir of the Storms triggers Greater Lightning Bolt. Greater Lightning Bolt comes down with lightning penetration, conduction, considered casting, and spell echo, hits multiple times, and eventually will shock the boss. Because we're triggering our Greater Lightning Bolt, in theory, every other shot, it is constantly going off. And in theory, within 1 to 2 seconds, you should have the ball rolling and the enemy should be shocked, and Shock Burst rounds should be off to the races and just start doing what we need to do. You can see the pulse in itself, 703,000 damage before any other buffs and anything else going on. And it just becomes this absolutely monster of a skill where you just see the number is just like doing everything we needed to do and scaling up astronomically to the moon. Now, overall, the skill in itself and the whole setup is pretty straightforward. We are Greater Lightning Bolt from the amulet. You do want the amulet to be level 19 Greater Lightning Bolt. It is very important because you want it to hit hard and do as much damage as possible. We are using lightning penetration. I understand that the Greater Lightning Bolt, when it crits, will ignore the ignore resistances, but we're using lightning penetration to guarantee that the non-crits actually hit and do enough damage to provide the shock and do what we need them to do. So we just have that. If there's a better setup, let me know. We're using conduction to guarantee 100% more shock. We're using considered casting to deal more damage to get that hit in. And we're using spell echoes so that we have our spells echo and hit twice. The mana drain, don't worry about that. That's just a second weapon setup from when I was a monk originally. And then we have Unbound Avatar. Unbound Avatar actually comes from our passive tree. We get it right there. Unbound Avatar allows us to gain Unbound Fury, which surprisingly with Galvanic Shards fills way faster than I thought it was going to fill. Unbound Avatar gives us 40% more elemental damage while unbound, 40% more ailment buildup while unbound, and 80% more chance to inflict ailments. This is absolutely fantastic for things like Xesh. We did not use it in that clip, so you can see the natural damage without this on. You will always have this up in maps. You will have this up multiple times in maps. You will have this up for every single map boss, that any boss that literally requires you to like not insta kill them, you will have Unbound Avatar up for. So it's really strong and it's up all the time and it's absolutely fantastic. We're pairing that with Cold Mastery, Lightning Mastery, Fire Master, Cold Fire, and Lightning Mastery, and Persistence to make it last longer. I don't know what I want to do for a 5th gem yet. This lasts 10 seconds. It's got a cooldown of 50 seconds. And for those 10 seconds, you are an absolute monster. Now, I had mentioned that we have a clear skill and we have a single target skill. Our single target skill is Shock Burst rounds. That is what you see right now on your screen. Shock Burst rounds, we have a Martial Temple to give us that beautiful extra attack speed, primal armaments for more weapon damage, elemental focus because, well, Shock Burst rounds can't inflict shock, so why not use LE focus to just deal more damage? Concentrated effects so that our bullets are just completely concentrated in wherever they want to go, and Fresh Clip to give us more damage every time we reload. Shock Burst rounds is crazy. The damage that it puts out is absolutely wild. You can see it, you know, it doesn't stay on the pulse screen. Every time I reload, it goes back to the projectile. But if we just scale up our damage with Fresh Clip says every time you reload, get damage equal to the amount of bullets you use. And we flop back over to our pulse. We see our pulse is literally millions of damage going down because the debuff or the buff is wearing out. Our overall clear skill that we're going to use inside of maps is going to be Galvanic Shards. Galvanic Shards is wonderful. It is literally like giving a hobo with a shotgun. Wait, that was a movie. A monk with a shotgun. You are literally just spread firing everything across the map. You just have the ability to reload at the speed of light. You have mobility so that you can fire and move nice and quick. Dude, it's actually kind of crazy. When you take mobility off, you're just kind of slow. And then when you put mobility back on, you are just like bang, 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 baby, bang, bang. We are using Ricochet to bounce off terrain. It is absolutely really cool. You saw it in the clip earlier in the VOD or earlier in this video where the bullets were just bouncing around corners and clearing breaches really well. We're using Fork as well so that when we hit an enemy, everything can fork, so we can fork and ricochet, and we have Lightning Infusion to just give us more damage as we kill monsters. Now we have a Cast on Shock setup. Our Cast on Shock setup is strictly used for bossing. It is only there for bossing. Essentially, we're going to be using Voltaic Mark with our Cast on Shock setup to give us more shock and more effective shock. We're going to be using Eye of Winter to give us that beautiful critical weakness. Critical weakness gives us the ability to crit harder. Essentially, when we shock and we cast Eye of Winter, crit weakness will happen, giving us the 100% crit cap that we need. We tested it in POB. We know it's 100% crit chance. We have Deceleration to slow down the Eye of Winter. Essentially, Eye of Winter by itself is very fast, and we slow it down so it hits all the time, and we get that 20 stacks right away. Impetus to get more energy back really fast, and Inspiration so we don't blow through our mana pool. Now, we don't really use a whole lot of mana with this build, but the only time we ever really do use mana is when we reload. So between Cast on Shock and reloading, there is a world where you run out of mana and it becomes a little bit of a problem. If I take this off, it eats through my mana and I will need mana. Thankfully though, having the unique mana flask helps a lot. Now we have Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice. These are our beautiful clear skills. When you're bossing and you need Cast When Shock, you see you shut off Herald of Thunder, you turn on Cast When Shock, and then when you're back to mapping, you make the swap back. We have Herald of Thunder with Glacian for more freeze buildup, Ice Bite for more cold damage, Cold Infusion for more cold damage, Inevitable Crit to guarantee that that first hit gives us that beautiful crit, giving us all of that damage. Herald of Ice, same thing, Innervate so that we just get more lightning damage, Magnified Effects for more area of effect, Ambush to give us that guaranteed crit, because when Herald of Ice triggers and shatters everywhere, we wanted to crit enemies that are on full life, and we get long shots so that we can just deal more damage while the Herald explosions are happening. We put cold skills on Herald of Thunder and lightning skills on Herald of Ice so that they work together and trigger each other. I'm sure eventually this is going to get nerfed in 0.2. That's my best guess. I can't guarantee it will or will not get nerfed. But if it does get nerfed in the future and we still are playing crossbows, we'll revisit this and look for a nice solution. Since we're CI, we have Grim Feast. Grim Feast is giving us extra overcapped energy shield. You see we have 227 extra energy shield every time we kill a mob, giving us beautiful overcap. We have Blink so that we can blink around the map relatively easily and scale up and down heights. You can actually put Blink on the second weapon setup, which I'm eventually going to do, where I'm going to get a nice shield with cooldown recovery rate, and I'm going to be using Blink on a second weapon swap so that I can blink a little bit faster. We have Combat Frenzy with Profusion to generate us charges, and Precision. Precision, you need to be hit capped because for some reason, even with all the decks that I have, crossbows are weird and don't get hit capped. Combat Frenzy will generate us frenzy charges every time we freeze an enemy, and then we use Charge Infusion to consume those charges and give us more skill speed, which gives us more attack speed. You don't really need the Combat Frenzy and Charge Infusion. This is extra. You do need to be Precision though. Precision you could put on Grim Feast. You can actually shut these off and have 95 Spirit, and then you could do other really cool things like there's Overwhelming Presence, which reduces the ailment threshold of mobs. But you don't need this. This is really nice. This is fun to play with. I do enjoy this setup, but if you don't want to play with this and you want to, incorporate a weapon swap, or you want to, do other auras, these would be the two flex slots that you would use. Now, our character has 4,400 to energy shield with overcap that puts us at 89. I think it's 8,900 because it's the double overcap of the 66. We have a bunch of mana. We have a bunch of spirit. We are indeed res capped. And if we scroll down a little bit, we do have 35% chance for evasion. If we get a better armor, we would get more evasion. And if we change the anoint on our necklace to subterfuge mask and got a better helmet, we would be able to also get more energy shield. You see subterfuge mask is right there, and that would give us more evasion. If we do manage to get a couple more levels, there's evasion rating there and evasion rating there. There's an entire wheel here, and there's a bunch of places that we can get more evasion. You can even, if you're going into simulacrums, take these two off, put on Wind Dancer, and Wind Dancer in itself would give you a ton more evasion to give you that nice little buffer of survivability. Wind Dancer is insane and you should absolutely use Wind Dancer, especially when you go into like simulacrums. Since Herald of Ice doesn't do anything, like Wind Dancer would be insane. But that is that. And we are chaos immune, and we're poison immune, and we're bleed immune in the current state of the game because of chaos inoculation, so chaos resistance doesn't matter. Our crossbow, the things that you want on a crossbow, projectile skills is really, really, really nice. You do want a high crit chance so that you can get crit capped easier. I would have loved a bow or crossbow with higher crit chance. Elemental damage with attacks to give us a metric ton of damage, and flat lightning damage to give us extra damage. Any other flat damage on the crossbow would be nice. I would love cold damage instead of fire, but we are here. The only thing that I could do better on this crossbow is raise the crit chance on it to a higher crit chance and maybe get +7 to all skills, but everything else about this crossbow is absolutely beautiful and perfect. Bombard crossbows, I think, are best in slot because of the fast reload speed. Our helmet, just tons of energy shield, crit and resistances based on what you need. Our body armor, resistances, a little bit of intelligence, and just high evasion, high energy shield. Our amulet, Choir of the Storms for greater lightning bolt, anointed with storm charge. Storm charge gives us extra critical strike chance. Our rings, both rings follow a very similar trend. Stats, int and strength, or strength and int, and a resistance. Very important for the suffixes. Resistances to cap out your resistances. Int for more damage with Hawa, strength to wear our crossbow, and our prefixes are lightning damage and increased lightning damage. These two prefixes are absolutely massive in terms of giving us extra damage. So getting the flat lightning damage is really, really, really cool. You can see right away, if I take this ring off, we just lose tons and tons of damage from the flat lightning damage. It's kind of wild. Our belt, Ingenuity to scale our rings. Our gloves, Hand of Wisdom in action. No surprise there. We are indeed stat stacking with int and dex because Hand of Wisdom in action is completely busted. And our boots are just int and resistances and high energy shield. The more energy shield that you get, the more ES you'll get. So my gloves giving me 23 energy shield give me roughly 100 energy shield. My boots at 165 give me almost 1,000 energy shield. The more energy shield on your gear, the more you'll have. My helmet, 1,300 energy shield for 300 energy shield. Very, very, very important. Our skill tree setup, we are indeed Invoker. Invoker is the play. We are going Invoker. We're going Invoker for 2 reasons. 1, lead me through grace. We gain spirit based on our energy shield and evasion on our body armor. If I take off my body armor, you see I have 100 spirit from the base campaign. When I put my body armor on, I go to 225. The more evasion and the more energy shield on your body armor, the more spirit you will get. We are not taking Sunder My Enemies because our necklace, and since we only do lightning damage, our necklace covers everything. We get a little bit of extra lightning damage and shocked ground from I Am the Thunder. This is helping us with bosses. As we shock the enemy, they leave shocked ground. They're standing on shocked ground, they're shocked. And we're able to really use those shock burst rounds to completely burn them down. We get a little bit of magnitude of shock here, some elemental damage here, unbound avatar, which makes us unbound and deal a whole lot of extra damage, more elemental damage here, and a little bit of cold damage. And when we freeze enemies, we leave chilled ground. The rest of the tree is pretty straightforward. We are doing the typical monk crit tree with all of the beautiful crit nodes, and we're stacking energy shield when we can. Since our tree, and since we're doing our ascendancy like this, we are taking eternal youth so that we can use our health flask and gain back our energy shield. So it's taken me a little bit of time to realize I need to press my health flask, but eternal youth is really nice to play with once you get the hang of it. More crit here, chaos inoculation here. This is how our life pool becomes 1. We become immune to chaos damage. Because we're immune to chaos, we're immune to poison. And because we have chaos damage, or because we're immune to chaos and we only have energy shield and they can't hit our life total, we are immune to bleed in the current state of the game, subject to change. We come up over here for controlled metamorphosis diamond. This indeed needs to be a massive ring. It will only work with a massive ring. It has to be a massive ring. Before you ask me, yes, it has to be massive. We are using this to grab pure power, lightning quick, and drenched. Now you can use secondary weapon points if you do a secondary weapon swap and grab all of these nodes up here for more shock and more lightning exposure, and that'll help out a lot with that if you do a weapon swap. Coming down over here, we're grabbing Wildstorm for more lightning damage, a bunch of crit nodes here. If you actually take this off, you can actually like get crit cap a lot easier, but this is fine. This is really strong. We come on over here, we're taking Jewel Socket, Jewel Socket, Jewel Socket, Falcon Technique for more attack speed and dexterity, the entire crit wheel here. We're coming down over this way, we're taking another Jewel Socket, more crit, and this entire diamond for extra stats. We get 10% increased attributes and 2% increased damage per our lowest attribute. Ideally, I'd like to get some more strength so that I can get more damage from this, but this is really nice. Our basic jewels all do the same thing. maximum energy shield, crit hit chance. Once again, maximum energy shield, crit hit chance. And then coming up over here, maximum energy shield, crit hit chance. Maximum energy shield, crit hit chance. See the trend? Maximum energy shield, crit hit chance. The thing that we want to note about these gems, very, very, very important, is maximum energy shield gives us a ton of energy shield. If I remove one of these gems, I lose about 200 energy shield. The critical hit chance from one of these gems is also very important. You see that we're at 49% here. If I take this off, we lose exactly 1.4% energy or 1.4% critical hit chance from one of these jewels. Very important that these jewels do what they do. Over here, we have a beautiful Against the Darkness jewel for extra lightning damage and dexterity. Ideally, I had gotten extra lightning damage int, extra lightning damage, extra cold damage, but I'm not spending 100 divines yet. So we settled with extra lightning damage dexterity, and we get a bunch of points from here and here. Ideally, if we leveled up some more, we can like get a point here, or if we leveled up some more, we can get the point here and move it here. But that's just where we're putting it for right now. The other jewel, the big one over here, is the Heroic Tragedy for Verana. The only thing that matters on this line of text is the word Verana. The numbers do not matter. Do not ask about the numbers. The numbers do not matter. The numbers change these other nodes in your tree. Because we don't know what numbers are good and where to put this to get awesome results, we do not worry about the number. We only worry about Verana. Verana gives us strength inherent bonus is 1% increased energy shield per 2 strength. That means when I take this off, I lose a couple hundred energy shield. The more strength you have, the more energy shield you have. You could actually, if you don't care about the extra like 600 life, like take this off and just put another crit node here and just call it a good day. And then you have more points here to play around with. Also another very viable option. But overall, the character itself is fantastic. It clears through all the content. It blows up everything. I'm going to be playing it for the next couple of days. I might actually scale it with Adorned. I really don't know yet. I might save my money and work on a Titan. I'm not absolutely sure yet. But overall, that's the character. Keep in mind, you switch to shock burst rounds when you're in a map. And then you switch to galvanic shards when you're in a map. Shock burst rounds when you're doing single target bossing. And then when you're bossing, just don't forget to shut off. What broke? Oh, yeah. Don't forget to shut off Herald of Thunder, put on Cast on Shock, and vice versa. And that's the character. That is everything. If you try it and you like it, let me know. If you get stuck and you have questions, feel free to ask in the Discord, ask on the YouTube, stop by the Discord, stop by the live stream, do all of that fun jazz. I want to keep this video a little bit shorter for you guys. You guys asked for a little bit of a shorter video. And overall, that's everything. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. And overall, that's it. If you play the character and you like it, let me know. It has been an absolute blast to play, and I love it a lot. I'm going to go actually finish this video, go stream this character a little bit, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.